Good morning, Rangada.
Yeah. So let us start. We have to read from 485, and Sunki is saying to the envisaging mind.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, Sunki, you read.
To the envisaging mind, there are three powers of Vijnana. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, very clearly.
Okay. Its supreme power knows and receives into it from above all the infinite existence, consciousness, and bliss of the Ishvara. It is in its highest height the absolute knowledge and force of eternal Satchidananda. The second power concentrates the infinite into a dense luminous consciousness, Chaitanya Ghana or Chit Ghana, the seed state of the divine consciousness in which are contained living and concrete all the immutable principles of the divine being and all the inviolable truth of the divine conscious idea and nature. Its third power brings or loses out these things by the effective ideation, vision, authentic identities of the divine knowledge, movements of the divine will force, vibration of the divine delight, intensities into a universal harmony, on illimitable diversity, a manifold rhythm of their powers forms an interplay of living consequences. The mental Purusha rising into the Vijnana Maya must ascend into these three powers. It must turn by conversion of its movements into the movements of the Gnosis, its mental perception, ideation, will, pleasure, into radiances of the divine knowledge, pulsation of the divine will force, waves and floods of the divine delight seas. It must convert its conscious stuff of mental nature into the Chitkana, or dense self-luminous consciousness. It must transform its conscious substance into a Gnostic self, or truth self of infinite Satchidananda. These three movements are described in the Isha Upanishad, the first as Bhuya, the marshalling of the rays of the sun of Gnosis in the order of the truth consciousness, the second as Samuha, the gathering together of the rays into the body of the sun of Gnosis, the third as the vision of that sun's fairest form of all, in which the soul most intimately possesses its oneness with the infinite Purusha, the supreme above, in him, around, everywhere, and the soul indwelling in the supreme and one with it, the infinite power and truth of the divine concentrated in its own concentrated luminous soul nature, a radiant activity of the divine knowledge, will, and joy, perfect in the natural action of the Prakriti. This is the fundamental experience of the mental being, transformed and fulfilled and sublimated in the perfection of the Gnosis.
So this is the last paragraph of each chapter. And the next chapter is the conditions of attainment to the Gnosis. So this is he is giving you three powers of the Vijnanamaya. Okay, so what are these three powers? Let's have a look at them. We know that the Vijnanamaya is the supermind. We know that. And supermind is the link between the unmanifested and the manifested world. Okay. So it's not easy to go up to that level, and you can have glimpses of it, maybe very short glimpses. But the idea in Srivano's yoga is to go and live there forever with your consciousness, not the body-mind life. The body-mind life gets influences from there and becomes purified and becomes a good instrument. The other day in another video session, they asked me whether the mind and the vital in the body also goes up to the super mind. No, the body and mind and the vital don't go to the super mind. They receive the light from above and get transformed, but they are at the lower level only. They always remain at the lower level. Body is matter. Okay. It's a higher that comes down to the lower and changes it. Okay. So let's read these three powers, what they are. Just 1 second. There is Yeah. So just 1 second, give me. Yeah. So to the envisaging mind, there are 3 powers of the Vijnana. So Vijnana is the supermind and it has got 3 powers. And what are those 3 powers? If you remember, there is an echo here of the triple status of supermind. Okay, so we'll refer to that as we read on. Okay, so the triple status of supermind, the supermind itself has got 3 layers which are really one. There's a gradation between them, but these are the 3 powers. What they are, we'll see one by one. Even if you see Satchidananda itself, Sat, Chit, Shakti, Ananda, there are 3. Okay, so essentially these are the 3 powers. To the envisaging mind, now what does it mean, envisaging? That which mind which constructs and tries to understand. Because when you go to the super mind, there is no understanding there. You become. There is no understanding. There is no envisaging. You become what you you envisage. Visage is vision. Okay. In visage in French means the face. In other words, there is a form. Okay. So envisage is to give your mind a form of what you're trying to understand. So envisaging mind, there are 3 powers of the. So when you're trying to understand with the mind, it it translates itself into these 3 powers. What are those powers? Let's have a look. Its supreme power knows and receives into it from above all the infinite existence, consciousness, and bliss of the Ishvara. So the Ishvara is the highest level, the bliss. So it receives what? Infinite existence, Sat, substance. Consciousness, the Chit. And bliss, the Ananda. So the substance which is conscious and which is also full of happiness. This is what you receive from the Ishvara. But it is one, it's not 3. Okay? It is in its highest height the absolute knowledge and force of eternal Satchidananda. So this is the first power. It receives from the Ishvara. The second power concentrates the infinite into a dense, luminous consciousness, Chaitanya Ghana or Chit Ghana, the seed state of the divine consciousness in which are contained living and concrete, all the immutable principles of the divine being and all the inviolable truths of the divine conscious idea and nature. So, first it receives as raw material. Okay. Secondly, the second power, it concentrates all this into Chit Ghana. Ghana is density. So that which is received from above, which is subtle, remember, it is subtle, okay, and infinite and eternal. It receives all these things and starts densifying them. That's the second power, the densification. And then it manifests them. So, in fact, that's it's interesting, but just an idea struck me just now. Okay, if you have milk, okay, it's very crude, but it helps to understand. First is you are receiving the milk from the Ishvara. Then you are thickening it. It becomes kheer. Okay. Now that kheer you start using for your sweets. So 3 stages. So first is the milk itself. You are receiving it. Then you are densifying it for use in the physical world. I'm laughing at my own image, but it is useful. Okay. The second is you are densifying it. And then the third power brings or loses out these things into the effective ideation, vision, authentic identities of the divine knowledge, movement of the divine will force, vibration of the divine delight, intensities of the universal harmony and illimitable diversity, a manifold rhythm of their powers, forms, and interplay of living consequences. Srim's language is so difficult to understand because he puts everything together. But you have to differentiate each one and see, because his vision is so global that it becomes difficult for our ordinary puny little minds. But I'll put this whole thing in another way. What are the 3 powers? if you remember, triple status of the supermind. Number one, it's a sea, which is absolutely without any formation and static. I use the word milk, which is not moving at all. Okay, so this is the first one. The second one is it starts densifying itself and ready to make forms. So in the there is slight difference, but you have to give a little latitude to your own mind, because the second power, if you remember, in the triple status. Okay, I'll first concentrate on this triple status. The first is the sea. The second is the sea starts moving and there are swells. Okay, the waves are beginning to, it's not absolutely horizontal, but it starts making, swelling, the beginning of a wave. And the third is the wave starts becoming absolutely clear. So these are the three powers that he is talking about. So first is the raw material that you get, okay, the formless you receive from higher up. Remember, Supermind Vijnana is not the ultimate reality. It is receiving from Satchidananda as raw material. And Satchidananda itself is subtle, infinite, eternal. There is no form there. So when it comes down into, it receives this material. This is the first. Second, it makes itself possible to make forms, so it densifies itself. That's the second one. Chit Ghana. And the third is, whatever are the possible forms, it begins to manifest them. But the manifestation is, the potential for manifestation is there, and in the overmind, the forms become absolutely clear. Okay, so these are the three powers. So let's see again very clearly what he's saying. First power, it receives from the supermind. Okay. Supreme power knows and receives into it from above all the infinite existence, consciousness, and bliss. That means Satchidananda is coming into the supermind. Satchidananda and supermind are different. Remember, Satchidananda is above the supermind. Okay, and Ishvara also is the Satchidananda, so he is on top. It is in its highest height, absolutely at the level 1 of the supermind, the absolute knowledge and force and eternal Satchidananda. So it is knowledge and force of the eternal Satchidananda. Ananda also is there. He has not mentioned it, but absolute knowledge and force. Then the second power concentrates the infinite into a dense, luminous consciousness. So remember, first power is the infinite. The second power is it densifies it. Okay, into the infinite into a dense, luminous consciousness. You can think of it as the black hole. Okay, the black hole is so dense that even light can't escape. That's why it's called a black hole. Okay? So this is what it does. It densifies something. This is true even in the physical world. Huh? When you want to make something, it has to be a substance which is dense. You can't do anything with a cloud. But if the cloud is the subtlest form, but then you have to make it water and you have to make it ice, then it becomes very, very solid, and now you can work on it. You can't work on a cloud, not possible. So these are the three steps. First the subtle, then the densification, and then the third one, it is now ready for making forms. Okay, this is the sequence. The second power, first power is the reception from the highest level as raw material. Second power concentrates the infinite into a dense but luminous. Okay, note that it's dense. Even the inconscient below is dense, but it's not luminous. It is dark. Here it is dense and luminous. Chaitanya Ghana or Chit Ghana, the seed state of the divine consciousness. Now that seed state also is very interesting. Is not the seed the dense state of the tree? So exactly that will help your imagination to see what is meant. So the second level, the second status of the supermind is a seed, the densification. Okay, the possibility of forms. Then second power concentrates the infinite into dense luminous consciousness, Chaitanya Ghana or Chit Ghana, the seed state of the divine consciousness, in which are contained living and concrete, all the immutable principles. Forms are not yet formed, only the principle is there of the divine being, and all the inviolable truths, absolute truths of the divine conscious idea and nature. Why is he using the word inviolable? Because the truth there cannot be changed, cannot be tampered with. But when that truth comes down to the physical world, it divides itself into dualities. So it can be tampered with at the lower level. Okay. But there at the highest level, absolute truth. Now, no tampering, it is in its purity. So inviolable truths of the divine conscious idea and nature. Okay. Inviolable truths of nature also are there, but in principle. And the principle is immutable. Very, very, you have to see each word and it becomes clear. But to keep all the qualities in the mind at once is not so easy. That's why it is so difficult to understand. But if you look carefully at all the words and imagine what he's saying and incorporate all the ideas, it becomes clear. Okay, so, so third power, sorry, third power brings or loses out these things by its effective ideation, vision, authentic identities of the divine knowledge, movement of the divine will, force, vibration of the divine delight, intensities into a universal harmony, an illimitable diversity, a manifold rhythm of their powers, forms, interplay of living consequences. So all the forms, okay, start becoming. If you look at the different images and fuse them together, it becomes very clear. So image number one, okay, the sea, absolutely static. The second power, the seas start becoming waves. The swell is there, not yet the wave itself. And the third one, the wave becomes quite clear. Okay, the potential for that wave becoming infinite and expressing what it is, it comes down into this one. Then that's another image also of the milk. That also is interesting. It does help. Okay, at least it's helping me. First of all, there is the milk, which is not dense. It is just raw material received. Then you densify it. Now with that densing, you can make any sweet you want. Okay, the different forms of sweets come up. Okay, so this is exactly what he's saying, and he is expressing that third power very clearly. Let's go and see clearly what he's saying. The third power brings or loses out. Srishti, creation starts at the lowest level of the supermind. In the higher levels of the supermind, the Srishti has not yet begun. The potential for Srishti is there. But in the third one, the Srishti is absolutely ready to release its forms into the physical world. And the moment it enters into overmind, one step below, all the forms become possibilities. Okay. The third power brings or loses out these things. Look at the word loses out. Srishti. Okay. Loses out these things by the effective ideation, vision, authentic identities of the divine knowledge. So now let's look at each word. Effective ideation. What is an idea in your mind? It's a forming of what you want to do. Okay. The power to give form to your idea. That's ideation. So the supermind is also doing that. That which is a potential, now it is, to use another word, what else can we do? Imagine that I want to create a lotus. So that's an ideation. And you have a vision of it, what it wants to become. And do you have the knowledge? Yes, you have the authentic identity of the divine knowledge. So you have knowledge. Then you have to make it real. So therefore, the movement of the divine will force. So there is Chit and there is Shakti. Simply imagining won't do. At our level, when I have an idea, I need will force to make it a reality. My idea is I want to become an engineer, but if I don't use will force and start putting it in practice, I never will be an engineer. So I need will force also. And then it takes time here for it to become In 10 years' time, if I am consistent and profitable, by 5 years, then I can become an engineer. But there it is instantaneous, okay, immediately, not like in the world after 5 years. So consciousness has the knowledge, the consciousness is substance, and there is knowledge as well as will. So what it imagines, what it ideates, becomes a reality immediately. That's the vision. It sees and it has the knowledge and the movement of the divine will, and also the vibration of the divine delight, intensities into a universal harmony. He's using the word intensities in plural because the divine delight can be of many types. It can be mental delight, it can be vital delight, it can be physical delight. You get so many delights of a universal harmony. But all these things are absolutely in perfect harmony. An illimitable diversity. We see the diversity in the physical world. A manifold rhythm of their powers, forms, and interplay of living consequences. So it seemed very difficult to understand the language, but now you can picture to yourself clearly what the supermind is. The supermind has the capacity to receive first from above. Receptivity is capacity there. Then it densifies and prepares itself to make real what it is receiving as ideas from the highest level. And third, it goes one step more towards creating the forms. Okay, that's what it is. So I go to the next sentence. The mental Purusha rising into the Vijnanamaya must ascend into these three powers. So it must go into Sat, it must go into Chit, it must go into Ananda. It must turn by conversion of its movements into the movements of the gnosis, its mental perception, ideation, will, pleasure, into radiances of the divine knowledge, pulsations of divine will force, waves and floods of the divine delight seas. Now, note he is not using random words. Huh? First he's saying in the sentence third power, he's saying first ideation. Then he's saying vision. Then he's saying divine knowledge, identity of divine knowledge, divine will force, and vibrations of delight. Now he is repeating these things again in the same sequence. It must, the normal mind of man, it must turn by conversion into movements of the gnosis, its mental perception. The capacity of mental perception, it has to make it into divine knowledge. Ideation and will, see, he is repeating the same thing, and will, and pleasure. So perception, mental perception, ideation, will, pleasure. He is referring back to Satchidananda, okay, Chit Shakti Ananda, or the divine knowledge. Pulsations of the divine will force, waves and floods of the divine delight seas. Okay. In one sonnet, Sri Aurobindo says, I have drunk Ananda like a giant's wine. It's very striking image he has used. Like a giant's wine he has drunk. Okay. And Sri Aurobindo is using here waves and floods of the divine delight seas. Okay. So again the same thing. Consciousness, force, and Ananda. All have to be there. Only if the mind makes itself subtle and rises, the consciousness rises into the super mind, it can have this, it must experience all the three. Then it can become supramental, not before that. The mental Purusha rising into the Vijnanamaya must ascend into these three powers. It must turn by conversion of its movements into the movements of the gnosis, its mental perception, ideation, will, pleasure. Ordinary pleasure must become Ananda. It must convert its conscious stuff of mental nature into the Chit Ghana, or dense, self-luminous consciousness. So, now he is talking of the very stuff. This is a very important thing, that way everything is matter, everything is matter, but it becomes subtler and subtler. Don't think that the abstract is something. I keep repeating it because I used to always think that it is very subtle and it's not material, but there is a material substance and there is a subtle substance. So he's saying your conscious stuff of mental nature. Just see that. He's using the word stuff. Okay? It is a material, it's a substance, but it is conscious of mental nature. It has to be turned into Chit Ghana. In other words, that's the reason why we have to concentrate. To rise into the higher level, we have to concentrate. It is the concentration that makes it Chit Ghana. It becomes thick and nothing else enters into it. It's only itself. So, dense, self-luminous consciousness. It must transform its conscious substance into a Gnostic self, of truth self, okay, of infinite Satsananda. These three movements are described in the Isha Upanishad. Now we will see the words being used in the Isha Upanishad. The first is Vyuha, the marshalling of the rays of the sun of Gnosis in the order of the truth consciousness. They often speak of it as 1,000 horses. In the Isha Upanishad, the rays of the sun are the 1,000 horses ready to manifest. But these are the marshalling. You are getting all your forces ready to descend. And making ready is the densification. Okay? The marshalling. Marshalling is clear. The word marshal is spelled with an S-H-A. Yeah? It is not M-A-R-T-I-A-L. That is military. But this is marshalling means gathering. Okay. When you marshal your forces, okay, even in an army, you are arranging them in array. Okay, you are arranging them. This thing here, this thing here. That's the marshalling. Arranging things so that it can manifest. The marshalling of the rays of the sun of Gnosis in the order of the truth consciousness. The second is Samuha, the gathering together of the rays into the body of the sun or Gnosis. Now, Samuha, okay, the gathering together again, very clearly, densification. The same truth is being told to you in so many different images and so many different ways of expression. So, gathering together is nothing but the densification of the rays into the body of the sun of Gnosis. And the third, as a vision of that sun's fairest form of all, in which the soul most intimately possesses its oneness with the infinite Purusha. Now, this is very, very similar to the Gayatri Mantra. Okay, so those Gayatri Mantra also. Next time we'll see how it is. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Yanna Satyena Deepayet. That is. So this is what he's saying. Very clearly you can see the fairest form of all. The fairest form of all is not Srinivas Gayatri, but the other Gayatri form. Okay? So, if you remember the Gayatri mantra, you will see the fairest form. That's what is translated. Also, it is there in the Isha Upanishad. The third, vision of that sun's fairest form of all, in which the soul most intimately possesses its oneness with the infinite Purusha. Now, here there is a footnote for the that Surya Rashmin Vyuha Samuha Tejo Yat Te Kalyanatamam. Kalyanatamam, the most auspicious form. Kalyanatamam Rupa. Kalyanam is auspicious, that which is good, which is the most auspicious. So that's certainly use the word fairest form. Okay, so tat te pashyami, that I am seeing. Yo asau purusha soham asmi. That is what I am. That's it in the Isha Upanishad. The Veda describes the Vijnana plane as Ritam, Satyam, Brihat. The Ritam, the right, Satyam, the truth, and Brihat, the vast. The right, the truth, the vast. The same triple idea, differently expressed. That's the whole thing. It is Differently expressed, but basically it's the same idea. So get the essence of it, it will be very clear. The three levels of the supermind. Level 1, the reception of the highest truth. Level 2, the densification for use in the physical world. If it is subtle, you can't use it, so you have to densify it, the densification. And the third, the beginning of the creation itself. Okay. So, is the divine knowledge. And triple N, differently expressed. Rhythm is the action of the divine knowledge, will and joy in the lines of the truth, the play of the truth consciousness. Satyam is the truth of being which so acts, the dynamic essence of truth consciousness. Brihat is the infinity of Satchidananda, out of which the other two proceed, in which they are founded. Brihat is the infinity. The infinity is the raw material. Out of the raw material, it is made first dense and then it is made into forms. So this is what he is saying. So, in fact, he has explained other places also. Suppose you experience the first level of Satchidananda, the individual soul experiences the first level, you only have a formless consciousness, formless, but it is the most luminous. Okay. Then if you experience the second one, you realize that the wave, you realize that you are an individual, but you are part of the whole. It's a beginning of the wave. The wave is the individual. Okay. So with the individual experiences the second level of the supermind, you realize that your individuality is the truth. It's not a falsehood. The falsehood is the ego. The individuality is true, but you are part of the sea. In the third level, there is more stress on the individual and less stress on the sea. So you start realizing both are there. In the second and third level, both the things are there, individual as well as the universal. But the stress changes because the individual is the form. So in the third one, the form is more important than the background, okay, the raw material. So this is what Swami is saying. Now I go to the sentence back in our text, okay. So the supreme above, in him, around, everywhere. There is above, there is inside him and around him. So the above is the superconscious, in him is the individual, around him is the universe. Okay. So everywhere, and the soul dwelling in the supreme and one with it, the infinite power and truth of the divine, concentrated in his own concentrated luminous soul nature. Okay. A radiant activity of the divine knowledge, will and joy, perfect in the natural action of the Prakriti. This is the fundamental experience of the mental being, transformed and fulfilled and sublimated in the perfection of the Gnosis. So, the Vijnanamaya, he has explained in great detail. For us, it is something very abstract, but you can experience. It is very rare to experience all the three at the same time, the three powers of the supermind. Normally, you experience only one aspect or the second aspect or the third aspect. That's usually what happens. So if you experience the first one, only a glimpse of it at the lower levels. At the level 2 of the spiritual planes of consciousness, you can get a touch of the level 1 of the supermind. And when that happens, you are in a formless condition. Okay. There is no forms at all. You are absolutely formless, and it's a nihil, but a positive nihil of light. Okay. The second one, you start becoming conscious of your individuality. But this universal is more real than the individual. In fact, when you see that, Sayadaw says that the experiences you feel yourself to be vast, and you see your body, but it's just a small point in this vast sea of consciousness. In the third one, the individuality is more clear, but you still know that you are part of the sea. Next step into the overmind. When you come down to the overmind, the many becomes a reality. All and each many is represented by God. So all the gods live at the overmind level. It is just one step below the supermind. In fact, you could call it, if you want, the fourth downward movement of the supermind. You can say that. Okay. So this is the supermind. So it's very clear, but for us it is all vague. But if you use the images that we have used, then it becomes clear. Okay. So what's the time? 8:27. So now the next is the how to go to this supermind. What are the conditions of attainment to the gnosis? Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
You know, Sri Aurobindo
Yeah.
must have gone to the supermind. That
Yes.
is how all his experiences, he has noted it down.
Absolutely.
But on 5th of December, he
Yeah.
pinned it down into the physical.
Okay.
And that is how he gave up his body because it was too strong.
Maybe. It's a mystery. Even mother has not explained much. She only said it's a mystery. But she describes it as a great sacrifice.
Supreme sacrifice.
Yeah, supreme sacrifice. But obviously, it was intentional because he had said that he can. In fact, one day he is describing Ichamrityu in the correspondence with sadhaks, and he is saying that I have attained Ichamrityu, but it is conditional. I cannot. There are two things which can deny that Ichamrityu. One is accident. Okay, he says that, and this because it is unforeseen. The accident can happen. And the other thing is, what if I take it into my mind to leave my body? And that's exactly what it is on the 6th of December. Because he thought that now is the time I go into the, I mean, this is my interpretation. I go into the subtle and start working from there in tandem with mother in the lower level. And she will do the work, and I am supplying all the inspiration and the capacities. I am helping here, and she is doing the work there. It's a sort of 2-in-1. That's why they did that work. Okay. And if you read the agenda, she says very clearly that every day she used to spend with Swayambhu in the subtle world, and he used to give her knowledge through not words, but he used to give her knowledge through images. So he used to explain things about the supermind with images. He would run and he would do all sorts of things. So, because at that level, you don't need to use words. Huh? You just vibrations, you make the person understand what you want to understand. So, this is the what he has discussed. So, this next chapter, conditions of attainment, should we start it next time? We have got 5 minutes.
Yes, I think it
I
would be
have-
better to start it next time.
Okay. And if there,
Rangadada,
yeah, tell me, Shilpa.
I have one more curiosity to know if
Huh.
Sri Aurobindo is our supreme lord, even for the mother, does Sri Aurobindo need anybody's support, even like a mother's force, to help him out? Means, as he is the supreme one.
Okay, she says that. She says Swayambhu is not, but he is the Lord himself descended into the physical world. Okay, so
Ah.
note interestingly that the moment you come down into the physical world, you are subject to limitations of the body, limitations of the vital, and limitations of the mind. Okay, there is a human element in you, and there is a divine element in you. The divine element is essential. Okay, but there is also the human element. The idea is that you have to show humans how to go to the higher levels. Correct? So your question whether he needed help Of course, he took help from Sri Krishna. Na? He took help.
Ah,
Yeah. He even took help at a physical level from Lele. But we
okay.
have to, yeah. The potentiality, divine potentiality is there, but you have to develop it. And because the human part has to become divine, and the human part needs help because it is limited to start with, isn't it?
Hmm.
The avatar is not the divine only. It is the divine who has come down into the physical world to show that out of the limitations and imperfections of human nature, you can become divine. That is the avatar. The avatar is 3/4 divine, 1/4 human. If you want, just in a very rough way, you can explain that. Right,
Ah,
Shiv? Yeah.
okay. Ha,
Yeah.
ha, ha.
When you
Then
are
we
in
can see the picture of Ram, Krishna, everybody, Ram and Krishna and
Yes.
all these persons also. Like Ram Krishna Paramhans has also a mother who was helping him. Like that, in each and every this divine aspect, we will see one more character with those help. With that character help, they means show to the world how to practice the
that's right.
and how to
That's right.
progress.
That's right.
The mother says
Yeah,
that when Sri Aurobindo left his body, the mind of light entered into her.
that's right.
What exactly is this mind of light?
The mind, you see, our mind has got 3 levels. Huh?
Yeah.
Physical mind, there's a vital mind, and there's a pure mind.
Mhm.
But it's at the lower level. The higher mind is different. The higher mind is at the second level, spiritual level. So the physical mind, when it receives the light, it gets illumined. Otherwise, the physical mind is the senses. Okay, the manas, that which interprets the senses. That also becomes divine. That is the mind of light.
You
I-
mean the physical mind gets transformed?
Yes, which is not only seeing the sense forms here, but you start seeing, your senses start seeing the subtle truths behind all the forms. That is
But
the,
mother could see that before also, no?
but not with that same intensity. No? There is a gradation. Remember the gradation again. There is a gradation in everything. Okay.
Oh.
And its gradation is negative as well as positive. Okay. Because there is an imperfection which becomes more and more perfect and less imperfect as you keep going up. Okay. And when you start coming down, that purity also starts becoming less and less. So when you go to the second level of the spiritual planes of consciousness, you start seeing all these things. The highest knowledge also is possible at the lower levels, but only glimpses, incompletely. This idea of gradation is very important, you must remember. But when the mind of light enters, it becomes permanent. And the senses become capable of seeing the truth behind every form. Normally, you don't see that, but it becomes very, very clear. You can have a vague idea, you can have a half vision, you can have a dimmed vision, but it can become very clear vision. So, all the other gradations. Okay. So,
Merci beaucoup.
okay. So, shall we stop here now?